Let him have it.
Oh, no. And lose our ace in the hole, he's going to walk us out of here. Ain't you, Copper?
It was Big Ed. He told me to do it.
Still, even the rating agencies were just hired muscle for the real dons of the conspiracy. It was the global investment banks and their financial engineers who were creating this pyramid of risk.
You know, in most areas of human endeavor, you get better as time goes by. You get safer bridges, safer airplanes. You know, engineers make things better. I think the financial markets is probably the only place where financial engineering actually makes things riskier. And the reason it does it is that its objective is not to improve safety, it's to improve profit.
And for a while, profit they certainly did.
Soon as you wake up, soon as you come back out of the mist, into the real world.
The banks had changed the rules of the game.
Soon as you wake up.
Risk was no longer a danger. It was an opportunity.
Money is flowing.
They just made the biggest bet in history. In effect, we've turned the global economy into a giant casino.
People were under the delusion that the U.S. economy was sound, that we were creating legitimate wealth, and nothing could have been further from the truth.
The system was structured so that people couldn't hear the warning bells. And when I say they couldn't hear them because their ears were stuffed with money.
There was, of course, one last line of protection. It was a regulation that required the banks to keep a reserve of cash in order to cover riskier loans. This rule had been in place since the 1930s and had served us all very well. But that was about to change. Now this is where it all took place. On the 28th of April 2004, the financial mob in this building made their grab. And after that, the world's economic system was handed over to the mob. There were many causes of the big bust, but the single event that meant certain disaster took place at a hearing of the US regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was the Commission's job to keep a lid on the level of risk in the market, but these regulators were in the pocket of the banking dons.
I feel this is a very, a very interesting time, and I think this particular proposal is very well thought out, and it sort of deals.
The meeting that changed the rules was all over in less than an hour.
In adopting these proposals, the Commission is taking what I believe is a major step in a new direction.
A dark moment of history recorded like the Watergate tapes.
If we saw anything illegal, we would tell them.
To the full extent of the law.
It's very hard to make use of.
Led by Goldman Sachs boss and future Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson, the banks argued that restraints on their borrowing should go, that they and they alone could be trusted to judge risk wisely. These men personally stood to gain millions of dollars from any change to the rules.
But that means if anything goes wrong, it's going to be an awfully big mess.
Okay, I'm convinced.
So this was it. This was the moment when the banks finally took over the system. It was a financial coup d'etat. And after this, the banks were terrifyingly both in control and out of control at the same time. Unshackled now by any limits, the banks began to borrow heavily. Leveraging, they called it, in order to gamble on the markets. hooked on easy credit.
Everybody was playing with large amounts of borrowed money. The entire banking sector was extremely thinly capitalized for the risks that it was running. The fundamental erroneous mindset had spread through society.
Any restraining norms went out the window in pursuit of a fast buck. What you have throughout this process is a sense in which any restraining morals, any restraining ethics, basically went out the window because of a view, if it's not explicitly illegal, it's legal.
But where were our governments? Were they not supposed to be protecting us and preventing this from happening? Well, no such luck, because the credit-fueled growth was sprouting the tax revenue that kept them in power. They also took their cut from the housing bubble and the banking profits, and they turned a blind eye to the impending disaster.
The government, knew this all along, and they could have stopped it if they wanted to, but no one wanted to rain on the parade.
I think in many ways when you're in the middle of a boom, nobody wants to take the booze away at a party. If the party's in full swing, it's already too late.
Our entire profit model was built on easy credit. It was the perfect addiction. We built an entire economy on an economic lie.
Investors continued to gamble recklessly, ignoring all the ominous warning signs. This superheated economy seemed calm enough, but below, pressure was building, and when subprime mortgages began defaulting in large numbers in the summer of '07, the banks were left holding piles of toxic debt no one wanted to buy, and the whole overheated system was at risk.
Then bang, it erupts. Countries fail, currencies collapse, banks go to the wall, and even the smartest guys in the class, they get caught out.
And all of a sudden, the music stopped.
The cheap money fueling the global addiction was shut down, and the financial markets went into shock.
It just took your breath away. It would just collapse, collapse, collapse. First you saw Bear Stearns, then you saw Lehman, then you saw Merrill, then you saw Goldman. It was a constant. Every week there was a new danger ahead of us.
We're all looking for a bright corruption. Well, you better get used to your soul's abduction.
Former Financial Times editor Andrew Gowers was working for Lehman and witnessed the collapse from the inside.
The days after Lehman failed, there was an almost complete collapse in financial confidence. And it's been described by normally sober-minded people such as central bankers as, a cardiac arrest at the heart of the global financial system. That's what the collapse of Lehman brought to pass.
As great as Lehman's losses were, they represented just a fraction of the risks ingrained in the world's economy. But why would the failure of a single bank cause a disaster of such biblical proportions? Remember, the credit bubble was based on the belief that assets would just keep on rising. So when that article of faith was exposed as a lie, it was inevitable that we'd be losing our religion. Financial systems are exactly like religion They're all based on the idea of trust and belief. Even the word credit comes from the Latin credere, which is I believe. Now, once that trust, that faith in the system becomes eroded, the entire financial industry implodes. All of us are still feeling the effects of this monumental loss of faith.
And it will take years to regain the public's trust.
The story continues to unfold, but don't expect the big guys to face justice.
Your company is now bankrupt, our economy is in a state of crisis, but you get to keep $480 million. I have a very basic question for you. Is this fair?
Make no mistake about it, this was the biggest scam in financial history. Tens of millions of jobs have been lost, livelihoods wiped out, and the prospects of a generation, a young generation, have been mortgaged. And the culprits, the bankers who paid themselves enormously, the regulators who turned a blind eye, and even the governments who cheerled, they're not going to end up in a place like this. They're never going to be brought to justice. And just to make matters worse, as we speak, your money is being used to bail these guys out. Now, how does that make you feel?